All right, we're rolling.
Are we rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling. All
Wait,
right.
are you really recording?
Yes, I am.
I don't see it. I don't
Um,
see it. You're lying.
you don't. I should say here stop recording. Um, but before I.
I guess because you're only sharing the window,
Oh
maybe.
yeah, my bad. I will share the entire
Okay,
screen.
so we're rolling.
Yeah. Oh, we're rolling. Yeah, I'm rolling.
Oh, we're rolling.
Okay.
And who are
So
we?
yeah, we're we're nobody.
We're nobody.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
we're
mean,
nobody, and we're here to talk about anime.
sounds fun, huh? All right. So I mean, we're not gonna have any sort of introduction for the two of us, but I thought we could introduce the concept, like what we were gonna talk about and in what manner. So
Yeah, so we're gonna choose some anime between each of us to focus on, and we're gonna compare what it is that we find interesting about this anime, and kind of try to deduce what it is that an anime needs to have for it to hold a certain quality to each of us, and maybe if we could even find some objective quality, although everyone's taste is different, obviously, but who knows? There's probably something that everyone likes, like Tsunade from Naruto,
for
maybe.
tits. Oh yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I
well,
guess those two
that
are
is what I was that is what I was getting at a little
yeah,
more subtly,
right.
perhaps.
And do you want to tell our wide audience why we are doing this?
Why we're doing it?
Yes,
Do we know why we're doing it?
I think so. It's because you kind of lost your interest in anime, and now we're
Ah,
trying to.
yeah. Well, yeah, we noticed that as we're growing up, we're kind of losing interest, right? It was you too, not just me. Kind
Well,
of
to a
losing
lesser
interest in
degree,
this in
but yeah.
these yeah, to a lesser degree, in these kind of dull moments in anime, or this kind of cringy culture. How did you call it? You had a name for it.
I had a name for it, but it turned out to be wrong. I thought it's
Yeah, you said tsundere, and that
right.
was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously we're not the best of weebs, so we'll be looking for some suggestions in the comments.
Yeah, if we
Mm.
decide to post this on YouTube, or I was thinking about Google Podcasts, but yeah, we'll see about that. So
Google Podcasts, okay,
yeah,
or
what
Spotify.
or Spotify? That's also an option. So do you want to start with your three anime, or should I go first?
Well, yeah, so we were thinking also about discussing the more popular ones before we pick our own, right? Like Naruto.
Oh,
Do,
right,
do you
right.
think maybe we should reference that one later?
Yeah, we could.
We could go in turns as well. Maybe that could be more natural. Um,
All right, like a draft pick.
well,
We could do
yeah,
that.
so okay, let's see. I guess I'll mention Death Note. It's an anime that both of us have seen, and I mean we both like it.
Yes, and by the
Um,
way, I let you. I mean, obviously, I already know your choices, and I decided not to pick the ones you picked because we wanted to have six different ones. So just thought I should
right.
throw it out there.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily the three we'd most necessarily choose to watch for the rest of our lives or anything. It's not a big commitment. It's just kind of the three that we thought of off the top of our heads.
Right, and I
But
thought it
yeah,
would be
so
interesting to talk about those three. So I,
yeah, as far as Death Note goes, we both agree that it's a really good anime. And I really do consider it one of the best ones. And the way I kind of ascribe this quality is that I would rewatch it. Um, Even after watching it recently, I would still rewatch it again. And
oh,
I think that's kind of a testament to an anime being good.
so when's the last
Um,
time you've watched Death Note or rewatched?
I rewatched it last year, I think.
Well, that's pretty
So
recent.
it's pretty recent. It's not like I watched it last month or something, but I could watch it again very easily. And the reason why I like it, I guess, is because, like we talked about earlier, I really find it important that you have a main character that you like, that you kind of project yourself onto. And a lot of animes, like Naruto or Bleach, for example, have these characters like Naruto and Ichigo that
You mean Naruto
they
and
just
Bleach?
yeah, Bleach Kurosaki. They just act so irrationally and so stupidly, and I don't know. It's always been hard to think of them as even human beings. Like, I mean, isn't it just too stupid the way they behave sometimes?
Yeah,
Is it just me?
no, no, I completely agree with you on that. It's usually, at least that was the case for me. It's much easier to relate to some of the side characters, not like
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe these main characters were hard to write because you had to make them as these like gullible good guys, and no one is really like that. I mean, that was kind of the case with most of these shonen on anime, right?
yes, and they
I don't know
also
about One Piece.
it is the case as well. I think there
Mhm.
was one. I don't remember if it was a video or where I heard this, but there's like a few types of characters in anime, or maybe in stories in
Mhm.
general, and one of them was a reactive character, and the way
Mhm.
they are used to like progress the plot is like sort of things just happen to them and they have to respond or react or
Ah, I
um,
see.
and
Yes.
I think most of the protagonists in those kind of shonen anime are reactive because just like stuff happens to them, they have to get stronger and then protect themselves or
Right, right. It's basically them just adapting to the new power scaling and trying to get there.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't
And
think
even
that's
even though these anime do it well, I mean the ones that are really popular like Bleach or Naruto, the main characters are still kind of bland throughout the whole anime. I mean Naruto sort of becomes interesting later on, but
then there's a different
yeah.
problem in that particular anime. But yeah, I guess that does I can see how that would be important for someone in an anime, and maybe
And then yeah, sorry, go ahead.
and I was gonna say maybe there was a bit of that when it comes to my anime preference in the past, but now I think I kind of um, started enjoying anime for a different reason, and I will get into that when I start listing mine. But
Right, right. Well, okay, to get back to my interpretation of why I like Death Note. So, contrary to Naruto and Bleach, I think that in Death Note, the characters, especially Light and L, are done very in depth, and I mean, I don't want to say that they're relatable because they're smart, oh, I'm so egotistical.
right,
But they do actually have some depth, death.
well, they do have some death as
um,
well.
yeah, they have some death notes. Spoilers, Light has the death note.
Yeah. But by the way, are we
Um,
gonna do spoilers or spoiler alerts or?
no, we're gonna talk about everything. I
Because
mean, we're
here's a
talking about
spoiler alert
anime.
for like
Yeah,
everything,
I mean,
and
if you hear us mention an anime that you haven't seen and you want to, then just stop listening.
yeah,
I
just
mean,
click the video off or
yeah, just don't listen to us. We're obviously shy,
yeah.
so.
What are you doing, you stupid? Close the video. All right. Now that we have that out of the way, I
Yeah,
think
now that we don't have anyone listening anymore.
now that the one person, aka your mom, has stopped
My
listening,
mom.
I thought I could introduce my first anime because as I'm looking at the timer, we are approaching the 9th minute, and if we're gonna
Oh
keep
wow.
this at
Okay. Okay.
30
Yeah. Yeah.
minutes,
Go ahead.
all right.
Go
So
ahead.
I was gonna go with Attack on Titan as my first choice, and now
Mhm.
to sort of elaborate on why I picked it or what I like about it is well, in contrast to what you liked in Death Note, which is like the main character and how relatable or easy to well just to relate to them, how easy it is to do that. In contrast to that, I uh, sort of started enjoying the world building or the time that Attack on Titan, the manga and the anime, because they're pretty
Mhm.
similar. The time they
And this is
spend.
something that Death Note doesn't have. They simply focus on the two main characters and perhaps on their surrounding a little
Yes,
bit. But
everything around them, every character around them is just a tool for them to sort of show how
yeah.
they're. Okay, so well, what I liked about Attack on Titan is how every character, no, doesn't matter how minor in the story, or how important in the story they are, they sort of get their 5 minutes, or um, however long it takes for them to be introduced into the story, for their backstory to be properly explained. Uh, and I never feel it's like, I never feel like it takes too long, or too, or it's like dragged out and
Right.
unnecessarily boring. I feel like it's always like just the right amount, and it just sort of helps you, or at least helps me, kind of see how it would feel like for different people to live in the world and experience what it would be like to find yourself living in that kind of situation. And I don't know why,
I
but
I really objectively appreciate everything you say about this, and it really is significant. But to me, I guess I still want that to be in the anime to some extent, but it's really hard for me to invest my time watching this character who I don't even know if that character is going to be relevant in 10 minutes, or if they're just going to get eaten by a titan or something, or and it's kind of like with Game of Thrones, how people always bitch about their favorite characters dying. You know how that's a thing.
yes, yes,
Um,
sure.
I guess kind of that's my point. I don't want to get invested into someone who I don't know is going to be worth the investment.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
know. I mean, I can't really quantify it because at the same time, of course, I want to know how people are reacting in the universe and how everyone's living through it, especially because in Attack on Titan, the characters are actually thought through and
Nobody does
everyone is
anything stupid,
relatable. Like
right? And
you
even
can
if they,
understand everyone. Everyone is a person, right? It's
yeah.
not like in Naruto where they're just like, "Oh my God, no! What happened? Oh, Sasuke! Oh, Naruto!
Oh,
Oh,
you're
they
such
need
a
to
good
get
voice actor,
strong."
dude.
I know, right? That
uh,
that was my Kakashi.
obviously. I mean, I knew that.
I had my hand on my eye, but you didn't see it.
Well, if you had your hand on your eye, I guess you didn't see much of it either. Half of it.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. So anyway, yeah, I can see how that would be a problem for someone whose main, uh, I guess, appeal in anime is finding some relatable character and then kind of following the story in order to see how they would be developed, or the things that would happen to them. But I don't know. I just even in Attack on Titan, I told you about my favorite character, and for those of you
Yeah,
who
it's Erwin.
right, so for those of you who are listening and haven't seen Attack on Titan, what the fuck are you doing? And
It's the guy who gets killed by the Beast
yeah,
Titan, who's actually
and
Zeke.
right. So he does die in the third season, but I
So
never.
don't get attached.
No, I mean, I obviously I'm still attached. It's my favorite character, but I never feel like it was a letdown for me to have him die. Uh,
His death
because
was meaningful. I
right,
mean, like in this scene when they're supposed to choose between Armin and
Erwin,
Erwin,
right,
it's really a meaningful choice, and it's not like in Naruto when they just bring back everyone. Like,
right. Oh
Gara dies,
gosh,
and then
a lot of people like
There's
this
Tio
character.
who's already dead. Yeah, well, okay, we're just ripping on Naruto now. It's kind of unfair. I hope
Yeah,
we'll have something nice to say about it.
we will, but I think
But yeah,
we should save it
we
for
both
like
like Naruto, so
obviously
let's
yes.
just get that out of the
So I
way.
think that kind of concludes my part on Attack on Titan, and yeah, just one more sentence. I just want to say that yeah, even though he died at one point, I still feel like his character arc and his kind of impact or whatever on the world and the story, I just liked it all the way through, from start to finish.
Right,
So yeah,
right. So you would say that he's kind of a side character. He had a kind of role in the universe, in like specifically in the main character's life as well.
right.
Um, And now I thought of another analogy between Attack on Titan and Naruto, as if these aren't abundant already. But
Yeah, and I
you know
also
how we have Neji in the
yes,
early Naruto, who's like sort of this rival of Naruto's, who he needs to become better than, and then he starts respecting him after this fight with Kidomaru,
yeah, right,
and then all that goes out the window in Shippuden, and he just doesn't exist anymore, and then he dies, and
yeah,
that's so meaningless.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
it's
his
like
his death is just like fuck you. You guys remember Neji, the guy you liked 500 episodes? Or we're gonna kill him now.
yeah,
And
his
it's,
skills are too expensive to animate, so and he's not really relevant in the story. Let's just kill him off. I feel like that's
yeah.
so okay. I think so. That's the first round.
Yeah, okay. I'll get to my next one. Yep, and I do have a nice way to connect it to Attack on Titan. Um, so what we said was kind of the drawback of Death Note is that we're just considering the first season of Death Note. The stuff after L doesn't really count. It's not good.
Sure.
But um, so we don't really see the effects of Death Note on the world. It once in one episode it was said that crime is down by 87% or something like this, and that's a nice statistic, obviously. But it would be cool to see all these criminals afraid of light and things like
Yeah, it
this.
does happen at one point, as you mentioned in one of our previous discussions,
Yeah,
but
yeah, and this like mafia group, but
by no
it's
means it's
not to
the
the
main
same
focus of
extent.
the story, right?
Yeah, and of course, I mean, in Death Note, you are supposed to be focusing on the carrier of the Death Note. It's kind of all through his perspective until we meet L. Like everything is from Light's perspective, every
Right.
single thing that happens. So, it's just the artistic
Point of view.
choice that they made, and it's fair. It's easier to immerse yourself into a character than even. And yeah, so my second favorite is, I mean, Code Geass is actually my first favorite anime, but I did want to start the discussion with Death Note. And the reason why I like Code Geass so much is just because the character of Lelouch resonates more with me. He is just so theatrical, so megalomaniacal. Wow, I pronounced the word. Um, I just, it's so entertaining to watch him, and I guess some of the twists and his strategies can seem a little ass pulley sometimes,
Right.
as if the whole anime is bending for that to happen. But it's always so theatrical and um,
No, just as a disclaimer
so
for
entertaining.
the rest of the audience, I guess I don't know much of the. Well, yeah, I actually don't know much of the story because I only
Yeah, you basically know just a little bit that I've told you, but
I know that, yeah, I know the premise and I sort of know how it ends, but
yeah,
I don't know anything that
yeah.
happened in
But
between.
okay, so yeah, maybe this is something that I should point out. The similarity between Death Note and Code Geass that might not be as apparent until I mention it. So yeah, of course, in both you have a smart guy who has some power and he wants to do something with
Right.
it. This
And that
very
kind of
drastic. But
confirms your hypothesis of why
yeah,
you
yeah,
like.
yeah. But what I also really like about Death Note and Code Geass and about the third anime that I really like is this fact that you only introduce a single element of fantasy in it, which is in the Death Note's case, the Death Note, and in Code Geass's case, Code Geass, right? This ability of Lelouch to tell people what to do, and later there's a little bit differences in Geass, like different characters have some other Geasses,
Right, but
but
in essence, it's a
um,
simple premise and
yeah,
it's
in
easy to
essence,
understand.
it's a simple premise, and then the whole world, the whole future of the character and their surroundings are determined by what the main character does with this power. So, in, again, in Naruto, or okay, in Naruto, you have a ton of different powers, a ton of
I like
different
how, I'm
stuff
sorry, I just have to say this. I like how most of this, of the length of this podcast is going to be about an anime that's not even
about
on the list.
Naruto. Yeah. Well, everyone knows Naruto, and it's still a good anime. But
Right. Yeah,
what
do go
one of
on.
the things that they overlook is this raw potential of things that they could do with the stuff that they introduced. But instead of doing things with these phenomenal jutsu or stuff, they just introduce new ones that are more powerful, and then the old ones all get scrapped. Like, what's the last time you remember this Juken technique being mentioned, or I don't
Yeah, right.
know,
One thing,
Genjutsu even. Like Genjutsu was such a pivotal part until Mangekyo Sharingan, like these Susanoo abilities, and then it just got scrapped because everyone has a tailed beast inside them, and everyone is immune to Genjutsu
right,
now because
right.
of that. You know, so many things falling off, and so many of these interesting mechanics of the world just being overlooked. Like we mentioned in this fight versus with Sasuke versus Deidara, which is kind of one of the last really mechanical fights where Sasuke uses this chakra nature to counter Deidara and then even puts him under this. He put him under Genjutsu in the fight, and then he uses this snake to escape the explosion. That's so cool. It's so
Right, so it's
mechanical.
basically using the simple things or the things that have been already introduced in like creative or smart ways and
Right, right.
ways that
Yeah,
just make
yeah.
sense. And I did like kind of consider that after we had the discussion, and perhaps maybe not, but perhaps one of the reasons why they sort of chose to um, kind of introduce new but more powerful but still simple powers is because it's pretty hard to kind of um, from episode to episode keep finding ways
Well,
to
it is hard. Yeah, of course. If you're planning to put out 500 episodes and you have maybe like a fight every 10 episodes,
yeah, it's hard to keep.
definitely.
Yeah, so that's probably one of the reasons, but I still wish
But
they.
remember when we were talking last time, and we thought of like super fun fights for them to do, or like when Swag Kage and Seth the programmer get
Yeah,
together and they think of all these things. Why don't they just, get someone like that to think of these fights for them?
I
It
mean,
would even be cheaper to animate that than make this like 10 nine-tail QB mode with Susano around it. It would be simpler to animate something that's not so over the top.
yeah, I
So
guess so, but I don't
I
know.
don't know.
They're
It
probably
would make them iconic. I mean, on the other hand, of course, I understand what you mean. Like, if you look at Death Note or Code Geass, they don't have a lot of episodes for that reason.
right.
And I mean, it's the same for other
That's
anime.
actually
But
why
I
I
did want to ask you, do you have any scenes like that in Attack on Titan that you like to point out? Because I did
sorry,
Attack on
seasons like
Titan.
what?
Things like using mechanics in a very interesting way, using the established mechanics in a very interesting way.
Well, I don't want to waste too much time of the podcast, so I'm just gonna say no at this time because I nothing comes to mind
Right.
like right now. But if I remember anything throughout the rest of the podcast, I will make sure to mention it because
Fair.
the fights or the encounters between Titans and humans have never been. Well, actually, saying it out loud sounds kind of stupid. I was gonna say have never been the main point of the anime. Well, it is the main point, right? It's about the world where humans and Titans, or which are also humans,
Mhm.
live together. But I never considered it the main point, like having fights between them. So
Right, right.
I don't have any like cool or creative things
But
people
it
do.
doesn't necessarily have to be a fight. Like in Code Geass and in Death Note, it's not about the fights. There is no fights. I mean, like Code Geass has some robot
Well,
fights,
they're
but
not fights,
like
but
I
they are
said,
encounters, right?
right. Well, I
A
guess.
character has to overcome another character that's kind of trying to kill them,
I
or
guess, sort of.
right.
Yeah. I mean, in Code Geass, it's much more political than it is confrontational, but sure.
All right, I guess I could now that you like mm, kind of widened the range of what is acceptable as an answer.
Mhm.
I guess one of my favorite uh, parts of the third season is when um, I don't want to get into too much detail, but uh, there's something that people know about Titans, and one of the characters, which is actually my favorite character, Irwin, decides to use that mechanic to devise a plan, which will then help him find one of the Titan shifters, which is a person of interest, like people who can turn into Titans. He decides to use that to his advantage and to find the Titan that is hiding among his ranks, his soldiers.
Right.
So again, not to go into too much detail, but that is one of the. But you see
Okay,
how it's
fair.
not
I mean,
about anyone.
yeah, it's tactical, sure,
Yeah.
sure. I mean,
So
this is the kind of stuff that I enjoy as well in Code Geass, for example.
yeah.
Fair.
All right, and
And you don't have to worry if we go over time. I mean, if
yeah,
this
this is
lasts
there
an
is no
hour,
way
this
this is
lasts an
gonna be
hour.
30 minutes,
It's
but
fine.
so maybe I could go on and introduce my second anime.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so it's actually I've seen it around the internet a few times, and I never thought I would like it because it's an anime about Vikings, and there's absolutely no like supernatural or fantasy elements or anything. It's just like a historical anime.
Really,
It's called Vinland Saga, and it starts off with
completely historical, no fantasy whatsoever, not even
whatsoever.
Norse.
Yeah, you're gonna
Okay.
you're gonna see in a little bit. Um,
Mm.
so it starts off following a character which used to be like a soldier, and he decided to start a family. So stop fighting in the war and start a family. But as he was a part of a kind of I don't know, a unit of soldiers that is supposed to follow a commander, uh, it was
Mm.
against their law or code or whatever to just desert war, and run off. So
Mm.
they decided to find him, and they did find him, but they didn't really have any um, sort of benefit in doing anything with him, like killing him or capturing him or anything. But then one time, after like a few years, at which point he also has a son, he decides to go on an expedition, I guess. I don't know what I would call it, but let's say an expedition. And that's in order to find the place which he sort of heard about, and the place is has a warmer climate, and it's easier to live there. There are no harsh winters or anything. He's talking
Right.
about America. But
Mm.
so yeah, he decides to go on that journey, and his son comes with him. So while they're on the cruise or on the ship, those people from his unit of soldiers attack, or actually they hire someone to attack him and to capture him, but he decided to like fight back, although he was the only one of his people who can fight. He decided to try to protect everyone else, and then he gets killed. And
Mm.
so his son was there, and he witnessed like the death of his father. And now the whole anime is about his son trying to find the person who killed him, and then it kind of spans
Right.
over a few years and follows the.
Right. So it's basically just a story,
Yes, but
a historical
again,
story.
there is like a, because it follows the son who has to find the guy. It's kind of he just travels all over uh, the Nordic countries, and I don't know. He went to a
Mm-hmm.
few countries, but there is a lot of characters. There is a lot of interactions. A lot of cool things happen
Mm.
that I don't know. Even for an anime that's just like purely historical.
Well, honestly, it's really weird to hear about an anime that's got no fantastical elements.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
That's why I thought I wouldn't like it, but yeah, I don't know. It's for I don't know what
I'm gonna
reason.
give it a try. I'm curious if I like it or not
Yeah, you can. It's
because there's no mechanics there, no new mechanics introduced, so there's nothing that they can do wrong.
right. So
But
right. So that's actually one of
yeah,
the reasons I thought it's a good example of why it's easy to make an anime like that with no supernatural elements, is because then all you have is the characters in the world, and there's nothing else to sort of
Yeah, I
build your
always
anime
feel
around.
like a lot of these authors, they kind of go overboard with the fantastical elements,
Yeah,
not just in anime. If you think about one of my favorite examples of going overboard is Harry Potter.
yeah.
When J.K. Rowling introduces, have we talked about this before? I
No,
wonder.
but
When J.K. Rowling introduces this time travel stone or hourglass or something,
yeah,
that Hermione has.
yeah.
Hermione uses it to travel back in time twice to listen to classes at the same time, to listen to double the class load.
Yeah,
That's what she uses it for. And then she doesn't use the whole thing until the last movie.
yeah.
It's
It's
insane to me, like the things she could have used it for. And and just thinking about what was going through J.K. Rowling's mind, introducing such a super powerful artifact and then just completely forgetting about it. It just makes me angry about how these authors are introducing these new elements willy-nilly into their universe and
that
then
they
just
can't
bringing them onto
utilize
it.
in a cool or creative
Yeah,
way.
yeah, it's not a realistic way. Like Hermione is super intelligent. I'm sure like, sure, like the meme is that she's a nerd, right? And she's listening to double the classes. But I mean, do you know what kind of things that she could think about to do with this kind of
Yes,
power?
yes, yes,
I'm sure
for sure.
she would think of amazing things to do. I mean,
I
we
mean,
could
I guess
sit
it
here and think about
to
them.
an extent just comes down to authors needing certain things in like in their plot, and then they have to introduce them in some way, but maybe they don't want to use them right away. They have to save them for like a later point in the
Or
story.
they don't want to use them ever again. But I mean, if they introduce this kind of stuff just for the plot, it's really lazy writing.
Yes,
And on the other hand, if they just introduce them because they think they're fun, but they don't give it any thought, it really bothers me.
yes.
And I'm really curious if this is the case for other people.
I mean, certainly does bother me. Like, I don't remember the term that person I listened to used for it, but there is a kind of um, like logic, let's say, that the story
Right.
should follow. Like, if internal logic, maybe that's the
Yeah,
term.
yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Internal
So
logic. Yeah.
yes.
Like with Tenet, for example, in Tenet, the movie, where they say that there's this such a thing as reverse entropy, right? So time can flow backwards if you have this certain machine that does reverse the entropy.
Yeah.
And that's the premise. That's the whole addition to otherwise real life logic. And the whole movie is built around just this one um, kind of
Concept.
consequence of this concept. Yeah.
Right. All right.
Like
I
what is
also
the
want to
word
give
like?
a.
And see, that's another interesting thing about tenets. I guess we didn't plan on talking about anime, but tenet really fits well with what you like. I think it kind of demonstrates how life is in a certain way with this technology. I mean, we're still looking at a few characters, not the whole world, but
But they are
it,
important
it's
characters in the world. Well,
yeah. I mean, technically, they're the ones to who this time travel is relevant. Well,
right,
time
right, right, right,
reversal.
right, right.
It's
So,
not relevant for
and I
anyone
also
else.
wanted to mention another example, which is maybe a little bit easier to like understand. Also, to to understand what I meant by internal logic, and it's um, for those of you who played Warcraft, nice. For those of you who haven't, too bad. Uh,
Warcraft or World of Warcraft?
Warcraft. There is a point in the story where one of the characters, Illidan, gets sent to jail, and basically he has a set of
Oh,
glaives as weapons, and he gets sent to jail with those weapons. And I understand the game is very old, and it's easier to just use the same model instead of like
yeah. The
changing
sprites
him.
are basically permanent, and so the sprites in Warcraft is constant,
Yeah,
and they send
so
him to jail with the weapons.
yeah, but you can see how that's kind of like in any story that's just devoid of
Yeah,
logic.
but
Like,
okay. See, that's interesting. For me, in games, I can completely omit this graphical contribution to it. I mean, if they are too lazy to make a different model, then who cares? Um,
No, I don't.
We
I
can
don't
just
mean
pretend.
it didn't really matter to me much when I was playing the story, but it's
Right.
a good example of
I
how.
mean, I did notice that it's something that you notice when you see him being freed with his glaives, and you're like, well, you could have gotten out.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things I like about anime with simple concepts or no supernatural concepts at all, or when the
Right.
writer just decides not to be lazy and uses the concepts in a logical way. So,
Yeah. Mm.
and what about your third anime? You mentioned it at
My
one
third.
point, but you never said its name.
Yep. Okay, so this is the anime that we discovered together by accident.
Yeah, that's a
Not a
funny story
very
for one
well
of the
known.
podcasts, future
Yeah,
podcasts.
it's not a very well known anime from what I've seen. It's
Oh
called
yeah, for
Ajin,
sure. Yeah.
and since you've explained Vinland Saga, I guess I'll explain a little bit of Ajin since it's also a little bit obscure.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll
so
actually,
the
sorry, just a disclaimer. Vinland Saga, I don't think is that obscure. It's actually a pretty popular anime nowadays. So
oh, I see.
yeah.
Guess it's just me who's ignorant. I'll definitely check it out though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ajin, and basically the whole premise is that there is certain types of people who, after dying, can rematerialize themselves to be alive, and so whatever kind of fatal, lethal injury that they survive, well, that they
Sustain.
how do you say it? Sustain? Yeah, they sustain. Um, they just respawn basically after a
Yes.
certain period of
One
time,
more
and
important.
that's
Sorry. One more
that
important.
they can make ghosts. Yeah,
No, no, no.
is that what you
But
were going?
regarding the regeneration abilities, whatever injuries they suffer while they're alive, after they get
Yeah, yeah.
killed,
As long as it's not fatal, they don't regenerate. But if they kill themselves or if they die, then all the injuries are negated and they
right? That's a bit
respawn
more
as
accurate. So I
healthy.
just wanted to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically, they reset. When you die, you reset with full HP, basically,
Excellent. Yeah, yeah.
in
Perfect.
gaming words. And another thing they can do is they can materialize these ghosts and then use them to fight. But that part is not as fundamental to the show as this one, and these two powers are kind of connected. But
Yes.
anyways, these two powers are the only fantastical elements in the Ajin universe, so there's nothing else that's different from the real world. And the way that they kind of address this existence of Ajin is really interesting. To kind of address your aspect of anime where you look for how it influences the world,
Hmm.
I thought it's interesting to point out how all the governments have these programs for using Ajin to farm interesting weapon, well, to diagnose interesting weapons for for the military or to
Yeah.
try out drugs. So they basically have patients,
Yes, and there is actually
well,
just a few
experiment
people that.
patients, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, there's not
It
many Ajin. There's maybe like a handful of them
yes, and it
known in the
completely changed
universe
the way
currently.
as it should
Yeah, and
when
it
it's such a.
completely, yeah, so there's just, let's say that there's like two Ajin per continent or something, and it changed the world completely because now everyone is kind of afraid. What if he's an Ajin and I don't know? And
Yeah.
everyone thinks of them as freaks because there's this kind of governmental propaganda because the government wants you to turn in the Ajin so that they can experiment on them.
Right.
Because once they have their hands on an Ajin, they can do anything to this Ajin forever, right? So because the Ajin is just permanently respawning with no cost to the government.
Yeah.
And all these Ajin that are known by the countries, by the governments, they're under constant threat of being captured or they
Or
are captured
have
and
been kept.
being
Yeah.
experimented on. Yeah. And so you kind of follow through this story through the eyes of this main character who is perhaps not as relatable. You can't really project onto him as you can with Light and Lelouch because he
He's
doesn't
not as smart.
have a certain. He doesn't. No, he is smart, but yeah, he's not IQ over 150. No, he just doesn't seem to have a goal. He well, I guess doesn't even care about surviving. He just kind of hates what he is, it seems, which I guess could be relatable to someone. I don't know. But he is interesting in his own way, and the other characters are interesting. But of course, what I
Yeah,
like most about
just
Ajin,
to kind of clarify what you meant by that, there is an arc in that anime which consists basically just of him running away from what the story is
trying to
trying
pretend
to.
like he's not even alive. Yeah, he's running
Yeah,
away from the story and
so
from
that's
all of
kind
his
of,
obligations. Yeah, but even not then, he's just basically trying to pretend like he's not an Ajin
yeah,
for himself, not to hide from others. But just he doesn't want to embrace it.
yeah.
Anyways, yeah, what I most like about it is indeed how they use the mechanics of the universe that they established, especially when this one character, Sato, just, goes ahead and kills himself whenever he sustains some injuries.
So that he can keep
To
going and kill people.
Yes, so that he can keep going. And that one scene when the police, and we never get to see the police. We don't like, there's no police character that we're focused on.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's not like we've seen the police develop some system against the Ajin. Now, this is a special unit against the Ajin. It's not just some regular police. But there's the scene when they're all completely ready for this interesting maneuver against Sato, and then they shoot him in in turn, right? It's
Yeah,
like every 3 seconds they take turns to shoot him, so that whenever he starts respawning, they kill him again.
yeah, because it takes a
It's
few
just
seconds or
a few
so
seconds
to.
to respawn to become
Yeah.
fully functional. So they just take turns and they keep killing him so that he can't really get up.
Yes.
It's so interesting to see that. Like, we didn't get to learn about how the police is doing this, and in some typical anime, you would have like the main characters who are super strong, and then all the others would just be cannon fodder, right? But
Yeah.
this SWAT unit, I mean, of course you'd assume that if the government is experimenting on Ajin for like 50 years, or I don't know how long, but some considerable amount, that they could think of a strategy to fight them, and they do.
Yeah, it does
It's
feel
a
like
really
it feels like someone sat down and thought, okay, what's the best way
uh,
to neutralize them
because
for.
I mean, if the author can't sit down for a week and think, hey, how could my overpowered character be defeated? I mean,
He's pretty lazy.
the police, they have like years and years of training to think of this. I mean, if the author can't sit down for a week and just think about that, then it's really lazy writing. And I like that that's not the case
And yeah,
here.
that's one
Or
of the
just
problems.
basically anything Sato does in the anime is amazing. Like when he collapses the freaking building onto
Yes.
the other building. Like that's insane. He uses the fact that he's just gonna respawn after the building falls.
Right, right, right.
It's just everything's around this one mechanic about
But
them
then again, if it was
respawning.
a long running anime, there eventually they would run out of cool ways to use it. The ability to probably start feeling kind of repetitive, and that's why I think in those long running anime, it's hard to.
I guess, yeah, it's fair. It's fair, but
So I guess
I
that's
guess
why
it's
there
a,
aren't
it's a
that many
trade-off
long running anime anymore.
trade-off between quality and quantity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
guess so. All right, and
Should we get to your last anime?
yeah, my last anime is so also just as your last anime was kind of different in comparison to the first two. The last one I decided to talk about is Steins Gate, and there isn't really a world building element or kind of a they don't show how anybody outside of like 5 or 6 main characters reacts to the premise of the anime. And I'm sure a lot of people know what the premise is, but just to quickly summarize it, they discover sort of a weird but functional way to time travel, and it leads to one of them dying. One of the other people in the group decides to try to change time or like go to the past and change what happened so that the girl wouldn't die. And then it just kind of spirals out of control, and he has to
Is that
fix
really
it.
what the whole ending of the anime is about?
But that's not
Does he
about
ever
what
fix
the
it?
ending is about, but there's like a good chunk of episodes after the
Does he
concept is
ever
fully
fix it?
introduced. Actually, it's been a while since I watched it, so I don't remember what happens with that
You
arc.
don't remember if Mayuri is alive or dead at the end?
No, she's definitely alive, but I don't know if he fixed it because one of the
Okay, okay.
big plot twists.
That's all I wanted to know, yeah.
No, she is definitely alive, but one of the big plot twists is one of the characters from the main group, which was always there in the uh, even before they discovered the time traveling device. It turns out to be someone who time traveled. Um, Again, not to go into too much detail in order to save time,
Yeah,
but and because I don't remember, but yeah, it just I guess the reason I like this one is exactly why I like Ajin. It introduces a simple to understand, but definitely not simple to use concept of time travel, and then the things they do with it are cool. The plot twists are cool. The characters are cool. Um,
yeah.
Imagine I said three different adjectives instead of just cool, cool, and cool, but yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, so that's the reason I like that one. Again, kind of
Yeah.
different from what I liked about the first two, but I actually do think it's possible
Right,
to like
so
anime
I
for
guess from this whole analysis, the thing we can definitely agree on is that we both appreciate having this good ratio between mechanics simplicity and mechanics utility,
yeah,
right? So how much you have versus how much you use.
yeah, definitely.
Um, if you just overinflate your anime with a bunch of cool stuff, sure, it's gonna look nice, but
In the short
you
term,
know,
but long term, it's gonna be a
the short term,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's not gonna be as memorable.
it's
Like,
just gonna be a mess.
you know that anime, the one with the knights. Like, there's 12 different colors of
Yeah.
guys, and then they fight. You remember that one? Can
Isn't
you
it
look up
Fate?
the name of that?
Fate?
It's
Fate's.
Fate.
Yeah, it's not really about the
Fate
12
Zero, right? Fate Zero.
Fate Zero or Fate Stay. There's a lot of different Fate animes. There's like
Right.
warriors from the
Right.
past that are being controlled
Yeah,
for
well,
the.
basically, that one is what I think we're describing right now. It looks, yeah, I googled it now as well. It looks nice, and then there's a lot of cool characters, or Tokyo Ghoul as well, right?
Yeah,
Tokyo Ghoul. Every ghoul is different. Everyone's super flashy, and you keep introducing these new ghouls, and and then it ends, and you're like, well, there's not really much that I saw there that's fantastical, that's memorable, that struck me,
yeah. You
Whereas
there's
in
like
Code Geass or in Death Note, I can remember these very, very cool twists and really interesting character moments where they use their power in some way and then maybe regret it in some way or something.
yeah. I think there actually now
And
that you kind of explained the uh, like what you dislike about those types of anime, there actually should be a also a good ratio between the length of the anime and the number of uh, kind of different concepts that you have to wrap your head around that are
mm,
introduced.
right.
Right. So if you have an anime that
Well,
lasts
I
12
mean,
episodes,
Naruto is super long. Naruto is super long, and although we really like it, we don't treat it as the same caliber of Code Geass
yeah, because
or
I
Attack on
actually
Titan.
think for the length of what it is or what it has, it introduced way too like way too little of no, not actually, no, maybe not the uh, too few concepts
I
because
don't,
I
I
don't
don't know if I agree with that.
no, I mean, okay, well, the concepts that they introduced are simple enough that they can use them and then sort of move on, but I guess the main thing of or sorry, the main reason why
You know what I think you're maybe thinking but not realizing? In
what
Naruto, there's this thing that they do introduce a lot, but everything that they introduce, it's not complementary to each other, but it makes everything so far irrelevant, basically.
yes, what I wanted to
So
say is the
from
main
the first 100 episodes, The thing that we've kept in the end is Sharingan and 8 gates. That's it. Everything else you could skip over and never see, and it would not affect the last 500 episodes in the slightest.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's actually
No,
what I was getting at, but I kind
that
of uh,
keeps happening. So Naruto kept kind of making its past redundant. Not just the characters that are getting outscaled, but the mechanics are getting outscaled.
yes, because
And
actually there
that's
isn't
far worse.
there isn't that many mechanics when you think about it. Where they're drawing
Yeah,
their
in the
power
beginning.
from. One of them is Sharingan. The other one is Gates, and then the other one is Tail Beasts, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, sure.
So
In the ending, that's really pretty binary. You've got Sasuke with the Rinnegan and Sharingan, Naruto with the tailed beast,
yeah,
and
and then you have to build
he's
a
got some stage powers, and yeah,
1,000 episode anime around that. That's I
yeah.
mean for what they had, I think they actually did pretty good. So there has to
Oh,
be
I
a
mean,
balance
it's
between.
it's a very decent anime, definitely.
Yes.
But yeah, so another thing that I wanted to address, so in addition to both of us agreeing about mechanics, I'd like to see how much this character development and immersivity, I don't know, immersion is
Immersion. Yeah.
important to you, and how much world building is important to me. So we want to start, for example, with um, I don't know, Attack on Titan. Are there any characters that you kind of feel like you identify with, and does that make the anime more enjoyable, or would you be fine
Um,
without it?
I actually don't. So I already said my favorite character is Erwin, but the reason why he is my favorite character is not because I identify with him or anything. It's just I don't know. I guess I like his arc, all of his arc from start to finish. And the second favorite is Levi Ackerman.
So let me just interrupt you for a
Yeah.
second. So you kind of enjoy this character transformation that he goes through, even though you don't identify with the character?
Well, for Levi, yes, but for Erwin, no, because he doesn't really go through any transformation.
Um,
His from like his childhood until the day he died. His goal or like what motivates him stay the same, but it's just like what happened between that day he
so
died and the beginning.
does this endurance of his speak to you, or what is it about him that you really like so much?
Um, I don't. I mean, I guess you're trying to like find a um, like if you liked this character, like what would you say? And you're like trying to get me to say that, but I don't think I have a good answer for that because I don't really like. I like his character, but
Hmm?
I don't like him as a character. If that makes
But
sense.
also,
There is no
does it
trait
make
of
more
his.
sense to say, right? Does it make more sense to say that you enjoy his role in the universe,
I
perhaps?
guess it does. I guess it does. Yeah. There's
You
nothing I
kind
like
of
about him
enjoy,
particularly or
yeah,
watching
yeah.
him or
You
anything
enjoy what he brings
to the
to the
world.
anime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I'd like to think about if I can say that for something
Yeah, for
later.
sure. Then I mean, while you're
What
thinking,
about
I can.
Death Notes? What about
Um,
Death Notes? What do you think about the characters there? What was the main reason you enjoyed Death Note?
oh, that's an easy one. um, Again, just to preface this by saying, I believe there's uh, different types of anime or different types of movies or whatever you do for entertainment that you can like for different reasons, right? You don't have to
Sure,
exclusively like
sure. It
things
doesn't
for
have to be the same. Yeah,
yeah.
of
So
course.
what I like about Death Note, from what I remember, because it actually has been a while since I last watched it, um, probably just how the clever ways in which the main character uses his power, and then the clever ways in which his opponent uses his intellect
Mm.
to counter the power, like from the few pieces of
Yeah,
information
so
he
this
has.
back and forth between L and
Yeah,
Mike,
probably.
yeah,
It's just
something
so
that's
suspenseful, interesting, and
it's
when
something that's missing from many anime. Many anime, you have this protagonist that's either unbeatable or is always getting beaten and is reacting.
yeah.
So
So
another thing that's visible in I think all the anime and well maybe not Vinland Saga. I haven't seen that one, so I can't speak for it. But
right.
um, is this element that's of course unique, not unique to shonen, but very pronounced in shonen,
Hmm.
where the main character kind of evolves in power and you watch them do it. Now in Death Note, Light evolves in status, right? So Kira becomes more and more well known, and you kind of see this change in his approach to everything because of it. He
Yeah.
revels in the fact that everyone's worshiping him, and he gets kind of sloppy sometimes because of it.
Yeah, actually, him progressing, or what feels to him like progressing, um, actually was the thing that kind of um,
Uh,
led to him being captured or whatever, to
but
him being
what I'm saying
discovered.
is, if ooh, I just remembered Parasite.
Ooh.
Wow, I wish we could have talked about that. Okay, let's leave
Yeah,
that for
for
another
another podcast.
podcast.
Yeah, sure.
That's a great anime. I would easily replace Ajin with that.
I,
But yeah,
maybe I would replace an anime on my list with it if you hadn't picked it. But yeah, it is a good anime.
I,
There's one thing I wanted to ask you, which is not only about anime, but I guess
mhm. Yeah, it
the
extends to
it
everything.
extends to, yeah. Do you feel like maybe recently or ever that you remembered something, like, let's say, an anime you watched in the past, and you
Mhm.
decided to like look it up and started watching it, and you felt like uh, it's way less interesting or way worse
Yeah,
than you remembered?
yeah, actually, about Naruto, this happens to me. Even when I rewatch the fights, especially the new ones, I always kind of think of Madara as being really cool in my head. And it's probably because of all the hype that, led up to him being actually in the anime.
Yeah,
But whenever I watch the fights with Madara, I just kind of get bored because they're basically like throwing things on each other.
yeah,
And I always remember this scene when he just flies by Kakashi and grabs his eye out. I mean,
yeah. It's so stupid.
it's a ridiculous one. But yeah, I don't know. For Naruto, yeah, definitely that happens. Um,
So do you
Not
think?
for Code Geass or
I
Death
I
Note
I
or
I wanted to give an example of when that happened to me. Is this stupid anime? Well, I don't even know if you could call it an anime. Maybe it's a Western cartoon. It's called, I think, Dragon Wings or something like that. There's like a bunch of kids
Mhm.
that ride around in rollerblades and race basically with RC cars as well. So the first team that has a member to pass the finish line and their RC car wins. That's the whole concept. And I
Uh,
just remember it being so cool, like those races, and then also like they get physical, like they try to like push others and crash their cars and stuff.
mhm, mhm.
And I don't know, I just remember it being so. Now that I talk about it, it sounds so stupid, but I don't know. I was like seven
Yeah,
or
it
8 years
sounds
old,
pretty silly.
so I
I mean, I guess that's too far back.
yeah, yeah, it is for
I
sure,
mean,
but
when I was that age, I thought Ben 10 was really cool too.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I
I,
guess, I mean, it is cool for kids, right? So it's just not something you would want to watch as an adult.
yeah, just
Not hating any Ben 10 fans over here.
no, for sure. But I'm just trying to exaggerate so that
Right, right, right.
you get what I
No,
mean.
yeah, sure, it happens. I mean, to be fair, the newer anime, some of them really have raised the standards. Um, and not just that, but we grew up watching these kind of shonen anime, and then as we kind of refined our palates with Death Note and, well, other
Anime,
anime,
yeah. It just gets
yeah,
you see what kind of potential there is, and
yeah, you see the potential, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, I don't really
Yeah,
have.
so
We're
okay,
approaching an hour,
yeah.
and
Let me just reflect on world building, and then we
okay,
can
yeah, okay.
call it a podcast. um, well, I'm trying to think of an aspect of world building that I could say that I actually noticed and I appreciated. Um,
Doesn't
can
have
you
to be
maybe help
anime.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think of something that you know I like, because I do objectively appreciate it, but I seem to always be bothered by it when it's, in excess.
Yeah, I mean,
But
the
how do
the
you define
instances that
excess?
in the instances that I can remember of you like experiencing
Mhm.
it, it's always like this.
Usually,
You appreciate.
usually negative, huh?
No, no, I mean you appreciate it in like you appreciate the idea of it, but when you actually have to go through it and watch it and let the world be built for you,
Right.
it's too boring or too, I don't know, dragged out or whatever. You just can't
I guess I kind
go
of
through.
I see the need for it and I'll soldier through it. But yeah, there's something about it that bothers me. I thought of giving Marvel as an example,
Hmm.
but that's even like not to my point. Because I was thinking of how, when Thanos did the snap and everyone's gone, and then in
It's not really world building. It's more like world
no, no, no. In this
destroying.
series, in this series, WandaVision, they address what the world was like after the snap a
Yeah.
little bit, and in this, well, even in Endgame, they address it a little bit, like with this kind of scene with Captain America and the support group. Remember that one where they're like talking about
Yeah, I
how
do, I do, I
the
do. But I think
how the
it's
blip.
not that easy to like compare movies to anime. I don't know
Of
why,
course, of
but
course. But even in these scenes, it bothered me. Like, sure, I want to see it. I guess I want to know how it is for the regular people, but
I
I
guess
don't
it's
really care for their
not.
storylines.
Yes, it's not. There isn't anything that's sort of. I don't want to say flashy, but it's not interesting to watch. I mean,
There's
for
no
you,
reward to see it.
yeah.
I don't know. For me, it's all about this progression, and
Well, I
maybe
just
this
want
world
to say
building
that
doesn't
in
lead to any progression.
the thing is in. Well, let's use Attack on Titan as an example because I can. I do remember
Draw
specific.
from it, yeah.
Yeah, I remember specifics about it. I can fairly confidently say that there has never been an element or like a character or anything in the story that's been um, introduced, developed, and sort of had time dedicated to it that hasn't been paid off later. So,
Hmm.
and it's not that I can like you say soldier through because I know it's gonna pay
Hmm.
off later. No, I don't really find it. Um, I don't find that there is a need for me to soldier through it. I just find it interesting. I don't know why.
Right, right.
I guess
Well,
there.
I wish we could know why. I wish I could know why I soldier through it and why you don't need to.
I mean,
Looks like we're gonna have to talk about this again.
stay tuned for part two.
Yeah, maybe we get drunk for next time for
Yeah,
the
might.
the opinions to get out easier.
Yeah. All right. All right. We haven't thought of a outro or any way to.
No. Well, this has been I've had anime talk.
Yeah, sure has been. Sure has been. Um, all right.
Signing off,
Yeah.
stopping the recording
In three,
in
two,
three,
one,
two, one.
now.